Transsexual women are subject to a profound epistemicide. There is exactly one story about us, and even sometimes told by us, and that is that we exist as a condition of suffering. This subjectivity is pervasive. We are born to suffer and to struggle. Our triumphs and successes exist either despite or because of our transness, and it's the same with our struggles and failures. Then, if we die, by someone else's hand or by our own, that we suffered and persevered in life. In the face of this unfortunate reality, I wanted to give a few people in the East Bay the chance to tell stories about themselves that have nothing to do with being trans. Bella, Beth, and Chloe each had these beautiful selves that appeared when I asked them to tell me about the things they're excited about. Bella is a musician, a singer, a songwriter, a performer, and a producer. Beth taught herself how to build a 3D printer from scratch. Chloe designs and creates computer chips and has customized the hell out of the school bus she lives in. These women make up only a fraction of the beautiful creativity and expansive trans community that exists in the Bay. We do not have to subject ourselves or one another to this queer pessimism, as Sarah Ahmed calls it, in which queerness is suffering. It's a pessimism about a certain kind of optimism, as a refusal to be optimistic about the right things in the right kind of way. And Lee Edelman wrote, rather than rejecting this description of negativity to the queer, we might do better to consider accepting and even embracing it, not in the hope of forging thereby some more perfect social order, but rather to refuse the insistence of hope itself as affirmation, which is always affirmation of an order whose refusal will register as unthinkable, irresponsible, inhumane. The world has ended. There is no saving it, no global revolution, no big happy ending. The hope for a future contains with it the story that our ontological condition will heal, and there will be a time when we are not defined by our suffering, but that this will require such a deep social change that the very notions of man, woman, non-binary, transsexual, gay, queer, and more will become anachronisms, and thus it remains a story of our suffering. This will happen. All empires fall, but it is unlikely to happen in my lifetime. Subcultures are part of the encompassing society, and thus one of their characteristics is that their practices can seep out into the surrounding culture, often in a deformed way, but not always entirely washed clean of their ethics and healthiness. Horrific as the situation is today, it would be worse if it was not for resistance and the unforeseen effects of people trying to live well. Just as we cannot save the world, we will not reclaim the future. Nevertheless, we will be a part of it. We are not the seed of the future society in the shell of the old, but one of the many elements from which the future is forming. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we are people, and not in the sense that I'm trying to convince anyone, because anyone that needs convincing is not going to be moved by three women talking about stuff they're excited about. Rather, we are people in the sense that we lead rich, complicated lives. We are not only more than our transness, we are artists, we are creators, we are musicians, and we are even filmmakers. We are not, however, born to struggle and to suffer and to die young. Throughout the interviews, consider what these women are saying. What are they trying to convey? And consider your own lenses and modalities, your own orientations. What do you bring to the interpretation of the work? How conditioned have you been to expect that a story about trans women will center our suffering? Why? And how does that figure into your self-conception?
There's an energy that can be manipulated, that is the collective energy that you can kind of touch and be near. And I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but it's a really wonderful feeling. And I don't have a lot of places that I feel very free in my life, and being on stage is one of them. God, I don't know. I mean, I've been a performer pretty much my whole life. I've been playing in bands since I was really young, but I've also taught myself how to basically do a lot of different things, and I do so much different kinds of music. That's a really broad question. I love all of it. I'm a producer, I'm a guitar player. Those are probably my main things. But I also, play the piano, I sing, I write songs, I produce for people. I've toured all over the country. I've also just traveled all over the country with a guitar, being a weirdo in a street corner, And I've been in, really nice studios and been the weirdo in the room with making the loud noises. And, I've done so many different things. I have a lot of different experiences. So, I mean, I'm not sure what to talk about. I started performing and playing music, which kind of started around the same time. I started playing in bands that performed when I was probably 11 or 12. Um, and I joined my first like serious band where we like wrote our own songs and made records and stuff like that when I was about 14. And a lot of my early band practices, I just showed up with a keyboard and just like, or whatever I was playing that I wasn't very good at, and basically just sat in the corner and talked to nobody, and then played my parts. And then over time, like I came out of my shell a bit. But then my main project that I sink all my time, most of my time into, is I play with this artist called Roma, who's this incredible singer, songwriter, producer, rapper from Oakland, who I've been playing in their band now for just over a year. We just did a run of shows that's kind of the culmination of about a year's worth of work, and we released a lot of music in that time. So, but we're on hiatus now because they're off traveling the world. So right now I'm recording a new record that is kind of just all over the place. It's very like electronic, but very folk music as well. It's this sort of strange merger of a lot of different things that I love, and it's also very it's very in your face. It's very abrasive. Like it's just you just sit down and do the thing. Like it might not be good, but like I don't believe in writer's block as this idea that like, oh, I just can't think of anything to write about. Like it's just sit down and put some words together, you know. Like and if it's bad, it's bad. And then sometimes we build houses that don't stand up, and that's okay, and we can try again. But like I'm also blessed to work with some incredible producers right now. It's one of the things about being a musician, especially in Oakland, especially in the community that I'm in, is that everyone is a multi-instrumentalist and a producer and an engineer and a singer and a songwriter, and they all have their own setups and their own methodologies and ways of doing things. And like I don't need to be the one behind the console at all times. Like I can just play a role. I'm blessed to work with just like some of the best producers and engineers, you know, on the West Coast. I'm just gonna say it, and that's really exciting. It's very inspiring. Like it's one of the exciting things about music right now is that because everybody has all these tools at their disposal, and also all of the history of music at their fingertips on streaming services, on YouTube, on whatever. Like there's just no boxes. You can do whatever you want. I will say in a place like the Bay Area, it is very hard to be an artist just for like plain financial reasons. Like, rent here is ridiculous. Every artist I know has some fucking hustle that, or some cutty place that they stay at that like the rent's not that bad, or they can get by, but like nobody has a good quality of life, and a lot of us, going being artists and doing what we do is not like a vanity project. It's a place where we find a lot of community, a lot of healing, and a lot of like catharsis. And also, a lot of us don't have a lot of opportunities otherwise. You know what I mean? Like this is kind of my best case scenario, like, which I'm fine with. I was never gonna be, wealthy. I was never gonna have like a good job. People survive because they come together and they look out for each other, and it's a lot of just us Bay kids left, honestly. Like when COVID hit, a lot of the people who moved here to go work in tech or whatever realized they could just work from home and dipped. Kind of a lot of us who are left is just Bay kids, just hanging on and trying to build something cool and I have come into such beautiful community here that through music and through art that I don't know that I would have ever otherwise. It's a cliche, but music is such a powerful form of connection between people. Like it's such a great way to meet and connect and share experience and share catharsis with people you don't know. It's a big reason I do it. It is I've seen it be the facilitator for so many beautiful things, so many like radical acts of change in this community and worldwide. It's I don't know. I don't know if I have much more to say than that. get some fucking craziness in there. You know what I'm saying?
Pretty much anything you could think of, like sex toys, guns, all of those models exist on the internet. As like a personal preference, like I don't ever print anything someone else made because I think it's good practice on my end to model it. Even if it's something that already exists, I know exists, I might pop it up and look at it for like inspiration. But like in general, I will only print stuff that I've modeled, and that's for practice. And on top of that, there's like a strong sense of ownership. This printer that I've made is like compilation of all of the things I hate about 3D printing, and all of the things that like I like want to try myself. Let's see. I started around like 2013. I was just browsing the web, and this thing seemed really interesting to me, and so I like brought up a $150 printer, which was an absolute piece of shit, like just so garbage, and like that printer spent its life printing parts for itself. It's not like exactly a 3-dimensional process. It's more like a 2.5-dimensional process because everything's still planar. You're just sticking single layers up one on top of another. So 3D printing just adds another layer of dimension. It adds the z-axis, and like it works the same way. We have to use this digital document, and you take it into what's called a slicer, and it takes that digital document that's a volumetric model and slices it to many 2D objects. And much like the printer, it's moving the like X and Y back and forth, and like for bed slingers, it's moving the bed back and forth this way and depositing plastic onto it, and the x-axis is moving this way, depositing it that. Then once that piece of paper is done, that layer is done, it moves up just a tiny bit for the next piece of paper. It keeps on doing that over and 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 over till you have a finished model. The general scope of what I was going for is like I hate maintenance. In general, like maintenance is a huge time sink. Like a 3D printer is like it's a fabrication multiplier. Like while I'm making a part, my 3D printer is also making a part. All of the files, all of the gears and pulleys, everything is like things I've designed. I don't know. I do so many practical prints. It's hard for me to like. Oh, that's a good one. This is also a practical print, but this is definitely a favorite print. So this is definitely a favorite print. It's just a little keychain holder for a remote control. It goes to a retractable lanyard that like glues into the table, so we never lose the remote control. That being said, the lanyard broke, and we've been losing this remote control like every other day. I was on this cross-country road trip that was like super awesome and great, and I hit a deer and like destroyed my lights and my muffler and like all the bits and bobbins. And I decided to like make my own like tail light to replace the one that was broken by the deer. So that one was pretty awesome. I was pretty proud of that. And it had like these super long signal lights. They're like, you know, F4 Phantom wings. If it's like semi-crystalline or amorphic, you want to cool it or not cool it. Semi-crystalline plastics do better with cooling, and like cooling a plastic will generally like help you print faster, help it look nicer, so like the plastic solidifies quicker, so it doesn't like melt down onto your part and look funky. But not all filaments, not all plastics could be cooled down. On top of that, my next printer is actually another 3D printer project for a disabled makerspace, and it's like incorporating all the ideas of the printer I'm building with like no maintenance and like very low downtime, easy to use, and very functional, but at like a very like low cost point. Like I'm trying to aim for like $100 to $150 price point, where you have a 3D printer that you don't need to do anything. It'll just work.
Yeah, I like it. Brings me joy. And it's very much almost an addiction in ways too. Like it's like I sometimes don't take care of myself well because I'm trying to get through art, what I consider art. Like this may just like in a lot of ways this like a lot of people don't really visualize, you know, making circuit boards as art, but it's very much for me an art. It was DIY bespoke work, which I've refined over the years, and with my previous experience as a product designer have kind of like integrated industrial design with usability, and am now launching a couple products that will help people who live in off-grid situations use products such as Home Assistant to manage their off-grid systems in various ways. Um, Also, you can make RGB light go blinky. Living in the Bay Area and being an artist, I don't really have the opportunity to rent um, housing, so I decided on the long-term approach of investing into the bus, and this is kind of part of that process, and makes my bus more accessible to me with some of my physical ailments, and my ability to continue doing the things that I like to do. So it's very cyclical in some way. It's like the hyper focus fixes the house, which helps me do the hyper focus more. So, Home Assistant is actually ran locally on your own home network on a Raspberry Pi or a old computer in a virtual machine. Um, can run it pretty much on anything. It's a Python application, so it can. I mean, they have their own like a few different ways to install it on different circumstances, but the best way is to get their Home Assistant OS and like fire up a VM, or put it on a Raspberry Pi, and then what Home Assistant allows you to do is actually take all your disparate smart devices and aggregate them into a local control service. Now that it's winter, I run my generator when I'm not at home. I have it set up like built in so that I can like pop back in and see where my batteries are and be like, oh, do I need to stay at the office a little bit longer and let my batteries charge, or can I go home now? It also helps with security because I know where my bus is at all times. I have GPS lock, not just in Home Assistant, but various other ways as well, and I can always like pop in and I can see, hey, these are the cameras that are on my bus. I know it's at home and not somewhere it's not supposed to be, right? And then I have some graphs for my power usage and my solar generation, and then it also shows me that I'm currently in away mode. So if it actually there's another camera inside, and if it notices a person inside, it'll text me a picture if anybody's inside while it's in away mode. So this actually has, under this cover, one of my Flip C3 boards on it, and since this is just an ESP32, you can write Arduino code to this, you can run different firmwares on it, it's fully hackable, fully open source. I write it and prefer to use ESP Home, and I sell it as a product for Home Assistant running ESP Home, but you can run whatever the fuck software you want on it. There is no jailbreaking, it's just open. So I feel like I've had way too much of those where it's like I've gotten myself in trouble just because I want to tinker, but nobody's been like, hey, if you like to do that, maybe you should, focus it a little bit more. So I've kind of had to figure that out on my own. But in Home Assistant right now, I just have a volume up and down button on my phone, and it moves that arm left and right. It goes for volume up, it goes for volume down, and just watching like the Rube Goldbergness of the whole thing is just absolutely fucking hilarious to me, and just like gives me so much joy to watch that I'm just like, this is so fucking stupid, but I love every fucking second of this.